Good morning, afternoon, evening. Whenever you're watching this, it doesn't really matter because you clicked on the right video, right? We're going to talk about how to simplify expressions, but we're going to bump it up a notch. If you saw the last video, we talked about simplifying expressions, but only combining like terms. So now we're going to throw in distributive property alongside like terms. So without further ado, let's get into it. Your teacher's probably mentioned to you time and time again that we always see if we can simplify anything that's in the parentheses first. So if we take a look at number one, we have 4x minus 3. We can't combine these together because these aren't like terms. 4x has the variable x in it, and negative 3 is just a constant. It doesn't even have a variable in it at all, let alone it has to have an x in it in order for you to combine them together. So we can't do anything there. So then I wrote down the 2 steps to always follow in order after you check what's in parentheses. And number one is you want to make sure that you can distribute first. And you know there's distributive property if there is a number directly next to the parentheses. In this case, we have that with a 6 being directly next to the 4x minus 3 that's in parentheses. So that's the very first thing that we're going to do. I always recommend to my students to draw these arrows showing that you are distributing this number to every single term that's in the parentheses, because I feel like more often than not, when they don't draw these arrows, I know it sounds dumb, but it works, right? So you don't accidentally distribute to just one number instead of both numbers. And I see that happen all the time with students. You know, they just rush through things, they distribute it to one term, but not both terms. So I think drawing these arrows truly does help, believe it or not. So let's go ahead and distribute this. Distributing really is just multiplying the 6 by every term in the parentheses. So 6 times 4x is 24x. Then we have 6 times not a positive 3, but a negative 3. So this is going to be negative 18 or minus 18. And then we didn't even touch this minus 7x. So this is just going to be brought down. And now we're done with the first step, which is distributing first. And now you want to check to see, well, can you combine any like terms in this problem? And we can. We have a 24x and we have a minus 7x. And again, they're like terms because they have the same exact variable, in this case, x. So we can't combine these together. Whereas the negative 18, it's just a constant, but there's no other constants around that we can combine it with. So the only thing that we can do is 24x minus 7x, which is going to give us 17x. And then we're just going to bring down that minus 18 because we can't do anything with it. And this is going to be our final simplified expression, 17x minus 18 for number one. And now let's go ahead and jump over to number two. We're going to do the same exact thing. Let's go ahead and take a look what's inside parentheses first. Again, we can't combine anything because there's no like terms. One has an x and one's just a constant. So we have no choice now but to just distribute the negative sign. And I always throw this one in for students just to see if they recognize, well, is there actually a number in front of the parentheses or not? And there is. In this case, it's a negative 1. But 1 times anything usually doesn't change anything, which is why they don't technically show the 1 there. So like, for example, if you have x, just the variable here, there's technically a 1 in front of that, but 1 times anything, it's going to stay the exact same, which is why we don't bother writing it. But in this case, since it's a negative in front of the parentheses, well, that's a negative 1. That's going to turn our signs completely different, which is why we want to make sure that we distribute this negative 1 here. So let's go ahead once again and draw our arrows. So we have negative 1 times negative 5x, and negative 1 times not a positive 11, but a negative 11. So now we have negative 1 times negative 5x, which is going to turn this to a positive 5x. Then we have a plus 11. And then we bring down once again that plus 17 because we haven't even touched that at all. And now we check to see, well, can we combine any like terms together? And this time we can with our constants, or just our numbers that are by themselves. So 5x is just going to be brought down because you can't combine it with anything. And 11 plus 17 is going to give us 5x plus 28 for our final simplified expression for number two, right? And then I wanted to throw in two more, a little bit more challenging problems. I want to kind of give you, a couple easy ones so you kind of get the gist of it, and then bump it up to what you might actually see when it comes to your class. So now, once again, I want to check to see in parentheses, can you combine anything? There's one with an x in it. There's one with a y in it, but those aren't the same variable, so you can't combine those together. And then once again, we have a constant of just 6, which we can't do anything with. So we have no choice to distribute, and we're distributing the negative 5, not the 4x, because the negative 5 is actually next to the parentheses, and the 4x isn't. So now we can go ahead and distribute. So negative 5 times positive 2x, we have to multiply it by the positive 6, and then we have a third term, which is negative 9y. So now we have to make sure that we draw all 3 arrows to make sure we don't miss one of these. And now we can go ahead and distribute this. So 4x is going to be brought down just the way it is. Negative 5 times 2x is minus 10x, or negative 10x. Negative 5 times 6 is our minus 30, or negative 30. And then negative 5 times negative 9y is going to give us a plus 45y. And then we can go ahead and check to see, well, do we have any like terms that we can simplify? And we do. We have 4x and minus 10x. Whereas the negative 30 is just a constant. That's the only one that's by itself without a variable. And then we have 45y, the only one that has the variable y. So 4 minus 10 is going to give us negative 6x. Then we have plus 45y, which is just going to be brought down. And then I always tack on the constant at the very end, which is going to be minus 30. You're always going to see your final answer typically in alphabetical order. So I like to put the x first, the y second, and then any constant that doesn't have a variable at all at the very end. And that's going to be our final simplified expression for number 3. And let's go ahead now and jump into number 4 before I give you 4 questions to try out on your own. So you're going to notice this one's kind of crazy, right? I notice there's 2 parentheses now that we have to focus on, but I first want to check to see, well, can you simplify anything in parentheses? Well, we have negative 3y squared. We have a minus 10. Those can't be combined together. Well, one's y squared, and the other one's just a constant once again. So can't combine those. But let's check the other parenthesis, and we have an x and a y. So can't do anything there. So then let's go ahead and distribute. But we actually have to use distributive property twice because there's 2 parentheses. So I'm going to do all of the distributive property in one go. So for our first parenthesis, we have a plus 9 next to it. So I want to do 9 times negative 3y squared and 9 times negative 10. Now for the other parenthesis, once again, we have that scenario where there's a negative 1 in front of it. So let's make sure to draw that arrow for this one as well. So we have negative 1 times 6x, negative 1 times positive 2y. And now we can go ahead and use distributive property twice. And let's just do it all the way through in one go. So for negative 3x, we didn't even touch that. We're just going to bring that down. We have a positive 9 times a negative 3. That's going to be minus 27y squared. 9 times negative 10 is minus 90. And then we have negative 1 times 6. Well, that's going to be minus 6x. And then we have negative 1 times 2. Well, that's going to be a minus 2y. And now distributive property is all done. And now we want to check to see, well, is there any like terms that we can combine together? And we have a negative 3x and a minus 6x. Now, some people at first, when they're learning like terms for the very first time, they're like, well, how come we can't combine negative 27y squared and negative 2y? Well, they both have the same variable of y. The only problem is that they have to have not just the variable in common, but they also have to be raised to the same exact power. So because this one's y squared and the other one's just y to the first power, again, we don't write the 1 there, we just assume there's a 1 there, okay? But y squared and y to the first are not the same power, so you can't actually combine these together. So the only thing that we can do is combine negative 3 and minus 6. So we have negative 3 minus 6, which is going to give us negative 9. However, since it's y squared, we technically write the one with the larger power first. So I'm going to do negative 27y squared first. Then I'm just going to write the y after it because it just kind of matches. So we have minus 2y. And now we're going to go ahead and combine our x's, which is going to be minus 9x. And then finally, we're going to bring down that constant of minus 90. And this is our final simplified expression for number 4. So let's go ahead and move on to the practice session and see if you can go 4 for 4 on the problems that I got for you. Right, it's the moment of truth. Can you actually do simplifying expressions utilizing distributive property and combining like terms? So I encourage you to pause the video here, grab a scratch piece of paper, write on your dog's fur, I don't really care. I want you to find somewhere where you can solve these 4 questions on your own, box in your final answers so you know to double check to make sure, hey, did I get this right? Where did I make the error, etc. when we go over the answer. So pause the video, try out all 4 questions, and when you think you're good to go, come back and play the video and see how you did. So I'm assuming at this point you've tried out all 4. Maybe your dog's upset with you. I have absolutely no idea. But if you did that, you're a psychopath. Don't actually do that. Let's go ahead and go over our answers now. And let's jump into number 1. So the very first thing I always check for is, hey, can I simplify anything inside the parentheses? Once again, we can't. So let's go ahead and distribute our negative 3 right away. So negative 3 times 2x, negative 3 times negative 12. So we're going to end up with negative 6x plus 36, and then all we're going to do is bring down that plus 6 because we didn't touch this at all. And then we want to check to see, well, is there any like terms that we can combine together? And we have a negative 6x and a positive 6x. Now, I bet you some of you did this. Well, negative 6 plus 6 is 0x, and then we're going to bring down the plus 36. Now, I'm going to ask you, what is 0 times anything? Well, you get 0 back, right? So 0x isn't the proper way to write this. You don't have to write this at all because 0 times anything, it's going to disappear. So your final answer is just simply 36, that constant all by itself. So don't put 0x, don't get into the habit of that, right? Very, very bad habit to get into. Because technically if you're writing an x there, well, it's 1x, not 0x, because it wouldn't be there to begin with. So hopefully you thought about that a little bit and just put 36. So I kind of threw that in there to see, hey, what do I do in this scenario? So 36 for number 1. So hopefully you're 1 for 1. And now let's go ahead and jump into number 2. Once again, we're going to distribute. So we have 8 times negative 5y, 8 times negative 12. So we have negative 40y minus 96. And then we're going to bring down that plus 7y. And then let's go ahead and combine our like terms. So these have the same variable of y. We can combine them together. That's going to be negative 33y. And then we're going to bring down that constant of negative 96 for our final answer for number 2. And now let's go ahead and take a look at number 3. And I threw a little curveball at you here a little bit because you actually can't simplify something here in number 3 in the parentheses. We do have two constants, a negative 6 and a positive 2 that you can actually combine together before you distribute. So I'm going to do that first before we actually go ahead and use the distributive property. So we have negative 3x, that stays the same. We're going to keep the minus sign for there now, and then just rewrite 4x, and then negative 6 plus 2 is minus 4. And now we can go ahead and utilize the distributive property. So we're distributing a negative 1 here. So negative 1 times 4, negative 1 times negative 4. And now we can go ahead and write this all out with distributive property done. So negative 3x minus 4x, and then negative 1 times negative 4 is going to give us a plus 4. And now we want to check to see, well, do we have any like terms? And we do, because they have the same variable of x raised to the same power. And I want to make sure I don't run into the webcam here. But negative 3 minus 4 is going to give us negative 7x. Let's see if I can fit this in here. So negative 7x plus 4 is going to be our final simplified expression for number 3. And now we got the very tough one at the end here, number 4. Let's go ahead and see if we can simplify anything in the parentheses. It doesn't look like we can, but we are distributing twice, so we're going to do that all in one go here. So we have negative 10 times negative 3y, negative 10 times negative 4. Then we have negative 1 times 6y, negative 1 times 7x squared. And now let's go ahead and write all this out now. So 13x stays the exact same. Negative 10 times negative 3 is a plus 30y. Negative 10 times negative 4 is plus 40. Then we have negative 1 times 6y, which is going to be negative 6y. Negative 1 times 7 is going to be minus 7x squared. And then finally, we have a plus 11 that we haven't touched. And now let's check to see, do we have any like terms? And we do. We have a 30y, that's positive. We have a minus 6y. And then we also have a plus 40. So I'm going to make these lines a little bit different just to separate them. And then we have a plus 11. So we have constants that we can combine together as well. So it looks like for our x's, we can't do anything with it. So I'm going to bring down the negative 7x squared first, just because it has a higher power. I'm going to bring down the plus 13x, because we can't combine it with anything. And then for our y's, 30 minus 6 is going to give us plus 24y. And then finally, 40 plus 11 is going to give us a plus 51 at the very end for our final simplified expression for number 4. So hopefully you went 4 for 4 in simplifying expressions when it comes to distributive property and combining like terms. If this video helped you out, please leave a like on the video, comment any other topics you want to see, and of course subscribe, turn on that bell for post notifications when I post next, and we'll see you in the next one with some more mathematics. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. See you later.